Welcome everyone. My name is Paola Corti, and I am from Italy, and I am the Open Education Community Manager at Spark Europe. Today, together with another great librarian, one of our great members of the European Network of Open Education Librarians, Sylvia Moes from the Netherlands, working at SURF, we are co-facilitating our 10th episode of our Open Education Café series. The title today is When the Opens Meet, what open education can learn from open science, and why not also the other way around. We are recording this event, as you can see, and so you are free to turn off your camera if you don't feel comfortable in showing your face, and change your name if you want to be kept anonymous. Today, we have two great guests. One of them is joining us in a minute or so. And the first one is Carlos Turro Ribalta. Welcome, Carlos. Carlos works at the Universitat Politècnica de Valencia in Spain. And our second guest joining us in a minute or so is Robert van der Vooren, who works at SURF, is a colleague of Sylvia Moes, and is also based in the Netherlands. So this series is meant, for those of you who don't know it yet, is meant to connect people and experts from all around the places in the world and help them by sharing their experience to pass the open education baton on to the community members. So I hope that what they are going to share with you today will be useful for you to build more bridges between open science and open education, because for us at Spark Europe, connecting the opens is a priority. So today we will discuss the benefits and challenges of integrating open science and open education. And our two experts in the room intentionally integrated the opens in their work and will guide us through their experience. Our discussion will examine the role of librarians and the role that they can play in intentionally connecting open science and open education, so that they can be better supported at the higher education level. And we will also ask you about your perspective as librarians in order to ask our experts and discuss with the audience what can be done to better build those bridges. So welcome again, and I see that Robert is now with us in the room. Welcome, Robert. Happy to have you. And I would now leave the floor to Carlos, if you want to start sharing your screen, if you want, and tell us more about yourself, a bit about yourself to introduce you, and briefly tell us what you're working on now, particularly in relation to connecting the opens in theory and in practice. Because this is what we are willing to do, have them less siloed and do more in order to build bridges. So if you could please share with us some examples about your practice and other practitioners' experience that you find relevant in your context, it would be a pleasure for us to listen.
Thanks a lot, Paola. So thanks everybody for being here. So, well, I'm just, well, I was contacted by Paola and Sylvia, and I just want to tell my experience and the experience that we have in Universitat Politècnica Valencia in Spain, basically about open educational resources, which is the topic that is more closer to me. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the creation of OERs. Anyway, as Paola pointed me, I think this is a conversation between peers, so whatever you think or whatever you want, or I'm for anything you want. Okay, so basically, I'm Deputy Director of Media Services. I'm from the IT Services unit. The important part here is that I'm an IT guy, so I'm part of the big machine, which is a university, which should be IT people, should be librarians, should be different peoples in different contexts. So as that, here I have the opportunity to work with my colleagues inside and in other universities to do more things. One thing we did, and that I'm very happy, and the university is very happy with that, is a project we started many time ago as part of our open science policy. My university is very keen in making everything open. We have a DSpace repository, so we have around more than 80% of the publications go there because there's a strong university policy for making everything open. And in my part, we wanted to encourage quality open educational resources production. So on one side, to make proper open educational resources that could be reused and used in different contexts, but also make it good resources in order to be used for our students. Well, and this thing went quite well, and we have more than 10,000 validated open educational resources able to distribute freely all over the world. So we are very happy with the project, or with the run-up of the project. The idea of what we want is that we recognize it, that in many cases teachers wanted to make OERs. Teachers are willing to make open content, but they have problems in order to do so. So on one side, maybe they want to make open resources and they don't know how to do that, and they need support. So in other cases, they want to do, but the university or their bosses wanted them to make some things and they want to do other things. Afterwards, they do things in the universities. There are a lot of things that have been done, but they don't have the acknowledgement of that task done. And even they don't have an assessment. So they do something and nobody tells how good is that. This is something that some teachers want and some teachers don't want. On the other hand, the university wants have a predictable plan. So know what is going to be made and by who. Also ensure quality, because if the teachers could do a lot of things freely, then you have to make a way to ensure the quality of the content, because if not, the people in the management level get a bit nervous of that. And of course, you make to have a proper publishing of the results. We don't want to make open educational resources and put that in a drawer and nobody finds that on the long term. So this was our diagnostic, some years ago of the task, and then we did a process in order to manage that. So this is a 4-step process. Well, as usual, there are sub-steps and so on, but 4-step process. So then each year we do a call for proposals for open educational resources. We explain what kind of educational resources we are going to support. I have a slide for that. And then we make a call for proposals. And teachers that want to produce OERs tell us which OERs they would like to produce and how. So then with that allows the university or the technicians there planning of what should be done this year. So the good part of planning is when we go to step 2, we want to support those teachers in a personalized way. So they feel comfortable in producing that content, producing that videos, or producing that material. And also, if they need that, we can train that for do that work. That would be the second step. Then we go to a technical evaluation of the quality of the content. This I call that technical evaluation because we think that the quality, let's say, the quality in the field of the content is up to the teacher. So we don't assess that. We assess that the content has the technical requirements to be published and so on. And then we move to the publication part. This is, which in our case is something that is directly done at the library unit, which is the licensing. We talk with the teachers for making a proper licensing. We publish in several repositories depending on the content. And this is like in summer. So each year we go that way, and we go to make the to try to find these win-win situations in which our teachers willing to do so find an easy way to produce these OERs, this digital content for students. So the content that we are producing should be in a short or not so short list in order for us to be able to support. So now we are supporting these topics. So studio recordings in which teachers come and we record in a studio. Screencast, they do the screencast by themselves, but we explain how to do so and make in a proper way in order to be publishable. Other video recordings, we have a category which is best practices, which is best practices for doing things, a different one. Virtual labs, doing with tools like MATLAB or Mathematica or so on. This is regarding OERs. And then there are other categories which are more related to collections, which is learning modules, which is several OERs that share a similar topic, and podcast, which is a thing that we are doing right now as a new category. It's a different one, and MOOC courses. So you as a teachers may apply at the beginning of the year to do these things. Usually most of them, if they fit in what we can support, get approved, and then move forward with the university support in order to make it. So this is our numbers. So we have a budget. Why we have a budget? Because with the acknowledgement, teachers get a small payment for their tasks. So I think it's important to acknowledge the work, and usually we recognize that teachers have a lot of things to do, so they need in some way to justify themselves why I'm doing this and not doing other things. We pay them in two ways. One is a small amount of money. It's much less than the money it costs to produce. It's just an acknowledgement, and then we give them some points in the university valuation. So each member of the university has a university evaluation at the end of the year of their work, and you can get some points by doing this. Also for doing many other things. And then this is the categories that we have: the studio recordings, the screencasts, video recordings, virtual labs, the learning modules, and the collections, the podcasts and the MOOCs. So at the end, we usually work with 200, 250 teachers a year. Some teachers, we have that all years. Some teachers keep changing. So I would say that is like 50-50%. And these are the numbers. So I think there are pretty good numbers. Especially in the long run. So in the long run, we do a lot of things. So, and well, I think it's like between 500 and 1,000 a year. At the end, now we have like the 10,000 OERs published and so on. And And the good part is that in the contract or in the document teachers sign at the end, they acknowledge the licensing. They allow the university to publish that in the channels that are used for that, and up to some point to manage the life cycle of these open educational resources. So we can use that for in many contexts. In our case, we speak usually Spanish. My Spanish is better than my English, yes. And that means that we have a lot of potential users in South America, and we have a lot of visits in South America. So our technical content that we are developing here usually have more views from South America than the ones that we have from Spain. And that's good because we are serving the public service obligation of our university for the world. And well, basically this is the kind of things I know more about. And I think then we can discuss and talk from that on. And that's it.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you for sharing also some numbers that clarify the level of impact that you are having already. And thank you, Sylvia, for sharing the links in the chat, answering Paul's request. I would leave the floor now to Robert, if you want to tell us a bit about your experience in building bridges between open science and open education.
Yes, absolutely. Many thanks, Paula and Sylvia, for having me here. It was a very, very impressive set of slides Carlos just shared, and reminds me of about all the expertise that is there actually throughout Europe in this particular field of open education. I'm learning every day. I'm saying this because I have a completely different role. I'm an independent consultant. I've been working in the open since 2013, usually to facilitate programs, to facilitate negotiations, to facilitate management in larger programs for, can be open infrastructure, open education. At present, I am managing in a Dutch program on the future of digital learning materials. Open education is one topic within this program, but the scope is much broader. My focus is on digital learning materials, OER, so to speak. And I have a team that mainly works on things like trust frameworks for sharing, that are important for sharing educational resources, materials, objects. I have a team that works on, is very community focused, which is the Content Advisory Council, a very important advisory glue, I'd say, within the Dutch community network. Strong advisory functions there. So I was asked to kind of reflect on these connections I see or are contributing to regarding open education and other opens. So I'd like to go back a bit to my first experience around the opens. That was in Open Access 2013. So I was working at that time for the University Association, doing the negotiations on open access. I think looking back at what was achieved at that time was called the first big deals of open access. If you can compare them to today and the fantastic initiatives on, for instance, Diamond Open Access and many other more models, it's great to see that there's progress. But I've always felt that it was not only about new models. It was a lot about trust in each other, in the ecosystem, and to understand each other very well. I'd like to share one anecdote to make my point. Negotiations with Elsevier in 2014 were tough, and it lasted until mid-2015. to get to a deal. Whether or not to judge if that was a significant deal, very much depended on who you represent and your perspective. So for the librarians involved, to have some open access at the same cost within one contract was a significant step forwards. But there were others looking at these negotiations. It was close to the Dutch presidency of the European Union. Open access, open science was introduced in the agenda. Many were hoping that we would take it much further and making a much bigger step. These are two very different ways of looking at some steps and results. So again, collaboration, understanding what everybody needs is difficult, is a challenge. It's not only about taking technical steps. A few years later, around 2018 until 2021, I've been working on the European Open Science Cloud in large EU-funded programs. And I kind of had this notion at that time that, again, trust, mutual trust, is an important topic, because there were fantastic technical solutions and ideas, but there was also a lot of competition, like who is to define what this future cloud in technical terms would look like. There was a lot of competition between private partners and public partners on governance, on what the cloud should serve. And then there was at the end a lot of challenges around governance. We saw the EOSC association emerge, but there was also the very prominent role of the European Commission. Governance really is something difficult. So by then, having been around the Opens for like seven years, I discovered that that really like working with experts, librarians, and other who have such fine visions and are up to speed with technical developments, the new things that we can introduce. But I always feel like I have to look at the bigger picture, focus on trust, and try to bring people together, collaboration rather than competition. So a few years later, after having advised many research funders, many library organizations on several open subjects, I find myself for the past 2.5 years in NPULS, this program about the future of education, digitization, and so focusing on, again, who is actually involved within the change that we foresee. I want to inspire myself and others with questions. Can we define what the old system looks like, what we don't like about it, which is obvious, and how to break down that system and replace it with something new, a new system in the broad sense? And who should be involved with breaking down the old system, building up the new system? There are very different roles that are important in achieving a system change, as I just described. So I'm looking around, and old memories about lack of trust, lack of unclarity about who is to do what, kind of inspires me to look at open education and how I can connect what we want to achieve with open education to previous experiences in open access and open infrastructures. And what triggers me is that the question, how much can I actually achieve on open education in the Netherlands without an international collaboration, which goes, I mean, like today, the OE Café, I wouldn't want to miss out on that. I think it's very important, information exchange. But the idea that maybe we are dependent on international collaboration in each country, in each institution, to actually achieve our goals. That is what keeps me busy. So I'm trying to think of what an international collaboration might look like. Who can do what? What do we actually need? These are big questions, and I haven't answered them all. And maybe if I find answers, they might change over time, which is why I like to be here. I think we need this to this international perspective and collaboration. Because when I think of the challenges around edtech and big tech, about the challenges to actually work with international meta standards, for instance, all these kind of things, they're big topics, and I think we need each other to achieve our goals. It will help build trust, understand each other's perspectives, and so I guess you all get it by now. My plea is to find out to what extent we need international collaboration, and I'm committed to do that. And I hope to be sharing with you on another occasion and others in the future. So Paula, for me, that is my contribution to this OE Café, and I hope it is of some significance to the audience.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert. It's interesting that the two of you brought very different perspectives with the same goals on the table. One more practical with numbers about what is being done within an institution and the steps that the institution took to implement open education as part of the developments of the broader open science agenda. And it's interesting what you just shared with us, Robert, with the higher level goal. I think that some of the keywords that I've been hearing so far and that I've loved to come back to in the last part of today's Open Education Café are definitely recognition, trust, and collaboration. Most of all, collaboration as a different approach from competition. So far, we already said that somehow the relationship between open education and open science is important for the higher education context at the European level. But why? Why does this happen? And how can we ensure that the European higher education also finds the connection between open science and open education relevant more broadly? And as we like to say in Spark Europe, support the opens become the default, at least in public institution as a first, but why not more broadly? What difference can we make for education and for research by intentionally integrating them? This is another question that I would like to explore with the two of you. And maybe also if you have something more specific in mind, what actions can institutions take to help in this? So for example, do you believe that enriching scientists' publications with the OER they produced will help to strengthen OER and open education practices also built on that? And is open data and research interesting as OER for learning? How could we organize this to make it accessible for education? I mean, Carlos already brought us an example of what you're doing, but I really want to understand your answers to the why questions, if you want to share.
Yeah, well, I can start and make a
Please.
small contribution. It's not a simple question, and there's more answers to that. So first of all, another experience. Within my team, we have some very fine young colleagues who are able to, to do some great analysis. They build language models and enabling them to actually do a very good research on annual reports, strategic plans of institutions. And what we learn from that is that the challenges of today of institutions have lots to do with demographic challenges, with financial challenges, with global instability. and a great number of likewise challenges. Little or nowhere one will find strategic ambitions on connecting the opens, or let alone open education itself. Of course, I don't want to say that there are great examples, maybe in the Netherlands, for sure in Spain and elsewhere in Europe, but generally that is what we see in the Netherlands if we study all these institutional plans. Now, what does that mean? And does it have to be that way? I feel that in terms of finding the why to connecting the opens and the why of open education, the answer lies very well in connecting the added value of open education or the opens to these big challenges that the institutions find themselves confronted with. So that's one answer to your question, I hope. Maybe I'll leave it to that for now. I have some more, but I'd like to hear Carlos.
From Robert. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Carlos, please.
No, I think it's. I support everything what that Robert just said. I think it's important. What I would like to stress is that if an institution is committed to supporting open science, should put, let me say, the money on top of that. So supporting open science shouldn't be only sign a declaration, which is very good, but putting a bit more effort in the university for that. And I think the universities are it's a big animal that is very difficult to move and so on. But let me say, for instance, one university, could be mine, could be other, sign, I'm supporting open science. On the other hand, I'm giving the researchers money for publishing in a private company or alleviating the fees on a private company. So I'm telling one thing, but I'm doing the other. So that shouldn't be like that. So I think we shouldn't put our researchers or teachers on that decision, because if we support that, we do that. And also, so for instance, I'm looking at the kind of things, publication fees, for instance. Let's say one university says, I'm voiding the publication fees in private in private publications for my teachers. So if you do that, then you have to think on an equivalent support for the open science publications, because if not, you are telling one thing, but really you are doing a different one. Looking at my institution, for instance, honestly, I think we did a very good work with OERs, but for instance, we could do the same in open data. We don't do that in open data. As we don't do that in open data, we have some researchers that do open data, but they are very little because they don't have acknowledgement, they don't have support, nobody knows, nobody published. So at the end, you have to support from the institutional level, but seriously, I think is. And the other thing I want to talk is that for teachers and researchers, you have to talk in a language they understand. For instance, in our project, we talked with them in the language of a grant proposal, and they understand what is a grant proposal. They make a proposal, they have at the end a review and so on, and they understand that. If you invent something very different, they don't feel comfortable, they would not go for that. So I don't have the solution, but I think those two things are a bit prerequisites for doing the things. Yeah.
Thank you, Carlos. I was thinking, well, maybe you don't have a strategy in place for open data yet. That's what I would, because sometimes, I mean, you already showed us that you started building from something, that you were good enough to make this evolve, and also to have the university put some money on creating OERs, which is not very common yet in many other contexts. So this is a way to pave the road. And I also like what you, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, but you have to recognize on one hand that the
Yes.
money is not so big for a university.
Nope.
So maybe it's big for me to commit that money, but it's not so big for the university. So at the end, it's just to make the willingness to commit more than the money itself. Yeah.
Yes, and connecting different approaches and different shades of openness can be also a good way to move forward. But I also like about what you just shared, that you are willing to talk the language that your stakeholders already know, and that they find already familiar. So you might be able to change it later, but as a first, if you start from the language that they already speak, meaning grants, for example, is a way for them to start paying attention. So I like this as a suggestion too. We have a comment in the chat. One is about a link on Scylla, and I expect someone to tell us more later, probably. And I have a comment from Marta Bustillo, who is one of our members from Ireland. She says, and I know she can't talk because she's in an open space. Personally, I think what needs to happen is that big funders should require not only that publications from research projects are open access, but that any output of research project should be published as OER, so that they can be used for open pedagogies. Once that happens, universities will be willing to fund open education. And I also agree with that. I don't know if you have any comments on that one, you, Robert, and Carlos.
Not so specific, but it was another point that I wanted to make, which is related actually to funding exchange. I think it was kind of accepted, like when we worked on open access, let's say around 2015, that there is a link, that there is in the why of open access, there is a link to also citizen science and sharing the knowledge of the academia with the public for the public good. And I think there are some very good examples, but at large, I question to what extent we have succeeded with that mission. Now, if I go to open education, or OER for that matter, what I see is that in my experience, for instance, past 6 months, I get a lot of requests from people with an educational mission. They have to do something which is very much dependent on education, and they find themselves kind of locked in their institution, right? They seek collaboration, they seek exchange with OER, because that is crucial for them to achieve their goals. And so they for them, NPOS as a program, because it's not institutional, is interesting, because there are attempts to actually help contribute and build an infrastructure, a better infrastructure for sharing educational sources. Now the question then on funding is, how do we get institutions around an idea to heavily fund and invest in these kind of infrastructures? Because institution, and that's okay, so that's the thing I'm trying to make all OE Café, they are, they trust themselves, and competition doesn't allow them to spend and invest on infrastructure for the greater good. And I think that might be a bit of a problem to tackle, or a challenge, if you like. We can't hear you, Paula. You're muted.
Sorry,
No
yeah,
worries.
agreed. No, I was just, I agree with what you just said. I wanted to hear from Carlos if he has anything to add to that, and then we have a comment in the chat also.
No, not especially. I think it's like Robert said, I think.
Okay, so we have Paul. Hi, Paul. Paul Gobe. He also says that essential for OER is that it is not only open access, but also reusable. And I would say editable, exactly the 5 R's. If it has a CC license, you can use it as OER, and the licenses are excluded. Yes, sometimes when we talk about OER with people at large, stakeholders who are already familiar with open science and open access, we have to make the point on editable materials, because that's what really makes them reusable and adaptable to different contexts, which is a key part of the work that educators do. Definitely, this is something that matters a lot for the open education side of the developments. But what would you advise more specifically librarians to do in terms of their role? Librarians are very often at the crossroads between the opens. So in my view, they occupy a very privileged but also full of responsibility position, and they have a lot of opportunities to help build those bridges between open science and open education. Which could be the role of librarians, given the challenges that you both highlighted at different levels?
Well, I think librarians can very much help with their knowledge about the challenges, with their role within institutions. I think they are capable and important to actually zoom out and help facilitate the system change, which sometimes means convening, bringing people together, mapping different challenges and the different roles. Because I think the challenge is more like requires a networked solution. Many players have to contribute, and I believe librarians can make a great contribution to actually make that a reasonable and understandable challenge, and maybe work that out in strategic planning or visions. So I think facilitator and convener for sure.
Thank you, Robert. Carlos.
Yeah, I think for me, I think librarians play a key role in this. So because as a content producer, I think discoverability and diffusion of the content is key, because if nobody finds the content, it won't be used. In order to be discoverable, there are several skills that are librarian skills. So I'm talking about metadata, about where to publish, about licensing. And if you don't do the things properly when needed, then it's very difficult to change that. For instance, talking in our process, there's a moment where the teacher is going to sign a document and then get the money for that. So at that moment, you can convince the teacher if that OER should be CCND or CC BY. Is the good moment to do so. If you do go for that later, it's very difficult to manage that change. So also, in order to find the proper publication channels for the content. So in that side, I think this is a librarian work. In our case, we are doing that with our library, and we are very happy with that. On the other side, as I think it's good to for the librarians to give open source options for software, which is my field, or other things, because and raise awareness of that, because many times you the people that came to sell things are from the private companies. So open source is not sold in that way. So somebody has to do that role in order to expand the open source awareness.
Thank you, Carlos. Paul, maybe you want to give voice to your last comment so that we can... Oh, you have another question. And sorry, another answer. Please, why don't you share directly with us?
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Paula, you asked what can librarians do?
Yes.
So I have two answers. The unpleasant answer is not buy commercial materials, because I see in a couple of universities that they say, no, we're not using the OER because we don't need, because we have complete and nice commercial materials. So it's basically pushing away all impetus for OER. And the second positive answer is do help the teachers in the curation and finding the application of metadata. But I see that libraries need the instruction of the university and the money of the university to do so. So then I come out to what Carlos and Robert said. We must convince the universities that it's also in their interest to support OER, and so not only open science, open data, but also OER, and that they not only say it and write confidence, but they also do it. So I think the main point is, as Robert said, how are we going to convince these universities? And maybe, as Robert said, one of the methods is to connect the OER goals to what you said, the challenges that universities now face, and say it in their language, as Carlos said.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. It's interesting because we are not only talking about the bridges between open science and open education, but as I see it, we are also talking about the sustainability, most of all, of open education. But in a way, for me, and starting from the title of this Open Education Café, we are talking about what open education can learn from open science. But there are also things that can work well the other way around. And in this case, for sure, we need to sustain open education with more money, more funding, and more time, because the time of the people is also another very privileged resource. And allowing people or inviting people, or even more, creating roles that officially involve people spending their time finding ways to make open educational resources more findable, shared with a better quality, easy to connect with others because they are in formats that allow anyone to play with them and adapt them, even if they don't have proprietary softwares and they cannot open closed formats. That could be a great contribution. Please, Sylvia. Oh,
yeah.
And then Paul.
I would like to comment, and I listened very carefully, I think, and the thing that's coming up in my mind is we have to explain why it's important to work on that, because university, higher education institutions are knowledge centers, okay? So we produce knowledge and outcomes and insights to make it a better world. But on a lot of topics, the information, the acceleration of information is going so fast, we can do more with the insight, the scientific insight, for better education, because the publishers, it's very hard for them to keep up with that. And at a certain time, they are able to do that because there's a lot of money going on there to make that happen, especially now with AI and everything. But I think still we have to be more aware that we are knowledge institutions. We do something for the public well-being. And if we use the newest insights on scientific research, for example, in the Netherlands on sustainability of building new houses, we also transfer that insights to vocational institutions where they learn and educate people to build the houses. So there the scientific output and the skill sets are combined together, but that needs an infrastructure to support that. And the infrastructure is the solution, but not the most important thing. The most important thing is the mindset to be aware of what it brings to society if we fully comprehend the functionality of being a knowledge institution and your position in the world. And we don't talk too much about that. It's more about the money, the decision, but not who we are and who we want to be. And are we still the institution we want to be if we give away all the money, like Carlos said, to private institutions?
Thank you, Sylvia. Robert, please.
Oh, sorry. No, no. Very much agree to Sylvia. Just had my thought on what that actually means, and again, I feel I feel like if you want to be true and close to your identity, which I think is what Sylvia plead for, I find the fitting question, or the question to link to that. I think things have changed a bit. So there's a demand for digital spaces based upon public values, where we can share. Like also Paul's idea that he really likes to see the application for OER. I think so. Public value based digital spaces is what we need. Who's going to build that? I mean, if your identity is institutional and you are to build something that you have to share with other institutions, I think that kind of is new somehow. That you know, to actually safeguard your identity, to stay close to your identity, requires investments in something that you share together with other institutions or even beyond your member states.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but luckily enough, we have learning technology standards that support you well with that, but not a lot of people are aware of that. And in my belief, the CEOs of the institutions don't fully comprehend the why always. And I think librarians maybe can help to tell the story why and to make a map on topics where the information, the acceleration of information or on sustainability or society goals or whatever are very meaningful, to think about how we do support our scientists or teachers to share and build together further on open science, open content, open information, open education, because in that loop of sustainability with the buildings, you see also the insights of the students coming back in that circle, because a lot of the students also produce output, insights, and that's meaningful as well. Yeah.
Paul.
Thank you. Responding to Robert's, we should have overarching institutional organizations. I think, yes, I think that's what you said, more or less.
Infrastructure like data space, not necessarily organizations. We have enough organizations.
Yeah. Okay. So infrastructure is, I completely agree with that. We are busy in the Netherlands. You are busy, Robert and Sylvia, with that extremely. But I think that's one point. But we, at the same time, the material is made and maintenance by the universities. So we must also very much focus on the impetus for the universities. And I think one of the things continuation of what Sylvia says, is that a lot of Dutch rectors of universities have stated that they see the danger of big educational technological companies taking over the initiative with platforms where they offer everything, where they collect data of students, and that threat might be good to, as one of the points to help universities get the why, to keep the independence of public education, independence of commercial proprietary big players. So that's one. And the second one, Robert, I was wondering, you said we must connect OER to the challenges. You mentioned a couple of challenges. Could you elaborate on where you see these connections? I'm interested in that. The challenges and the connections.
Mm-hmm. So this is very local, right? In the Netherlands, a decline of students, a decline of budget for higher education. These are very urgent, actual challenges for the institutions. I believe that, you know, it has been showcased, for instance, I'd like to connect people where in meetings where we are. So like Sylvia, and you were probably involved as well, there are clear cases that there is an efficiency that can come off, OER. And I feel that that's very interesting. What we see is some kind of denial from institutions that these challenges are happening, like less students, less money. No one seems to be able to, for their institution, be the first to say, we have an idea how we can cope with these challenges. We all kind of, against all the odds, we continue as institutions what we do, and we don't see the challenges that open education can bring to actually cope with challenges that I just shared as example. I hope that makes some sense, Paul. So, I know it's not the best example, to say it saves money and it can help you with when budgets are cut, but I think that is a reality. I think that we can also try and find examples where it's good for quality. I think there are new needs, requirements for educational resources, and I think with the open standards, it would be better to deliver those. For sure, we know that for the quality of education, it's good that we are able to quickly adapt materials to actual developments, the news, to whatever. And we know that the private market is not always able to deliver that in time.
Thank you, Robert. So our time is up. I just wanted to point you to a comment that Marta Bustillo from UCD in Ireland wrote in the chat. I think there is a huge opportunity because her focus is interesting. It brings the visibility of universities ahead of the moment when students join them. I think there is a huge opportunity to focus on the reputational benefits that the creation of OER brings to universities, how students will want to come to universities that create high quality OER, which they have been able to use prior to joining the university. This is happening more and more. And yes, I understand, Carlos. Thank you for supporting that comment. Me, definitely, I also support it. We could go ahead for another hour or so, I'm sure, but our time is up now. So first of all, thank you, Robert and Carlos, for being with us today and for sharing with us all your expertise. And also thank you for the librarians in the room and the professors in the room who shared their views and their comments with us. I'm looking forward to share the recordings with all of you in our NOL for Open YouTube channel as soon as ready. And I'm happy to let you all know when we are going to organize the next Open Education Café. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much.